Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is episode number 3 of Global Food Network. Today's topic is going to be focused on Thanksgiving, but from a different lens or perspective. Our first two episodes were not just talking about the history of Thanksgiving and what Thanksgiving is now, but sometimes Thanksgiving does not really bring joy as we usually talk about having the thanks, having family time that you spend together, or even Friendsgiving. So, a lot of the times, some people may not get to experience that for a short period of time or even years at a time as well, or sometimes never. And that is where Rudy's presence or experience, sharing of experience is so important to us right now because I don't want to speak on behalf of Rudy because of his experience, but we do want to focus on Thanksgiving meals and gatherings within the prison system. And Rudy, you mentioned that you're in San Jose, California, and I don't want to summarize your experience, but it would be awesome if you could talk maybe in a few words, what what your experience was, uh, before you started working with me at our day job.
Hello, everybody. Rudy Navarro is here, coming out of San Jose, California. At first, when I had first got incarcerated in 2015, yeah, it was pretty rough. I was still very young, 21 at the time. So it was a big change for me. Just experiencing all that, first time ever being incarcerated. So being apart from my family during the holidays was definitely challenging. The county jail out here where I was at, the food that they gave us for the holidays was nothing like a holiday meal. Meal wise wasn't good. So, we definitely guys in there, as well as myself, those that do go to canteen and go to the store and get food from the vendors that they allow us to buy food from. We made the best of it, as close to as what we can get to a Thanksgiving meal. But yeah, it was definitely rough. Everybody's trying to get on the phone, trying to call their loved ones. So yeah, it was an experience. But as the time did go on, you kind of like embedded in yourself, in your own self, or at least for me, for what I did from county jail, it did get a little easier for me, as the years went by. You know how you're gonna feel once you get closer to the holidays. So you try to, or at least I try to shut out the sadness, of me not being there with my family. But when I did talk to them, I put up a different front, so I was just like, I'm happy all this, trying to make it seem so it uplifts their spirits because I know it's something that gets them sad as well, especially around Thanksgiving because that's like my one of my big holidays is Thanksgiving and Christmas. And every Thanksgiving from when I was very little, I would always be the one to wrap the turkey with bacon. So we would always do a bacon wrapped turkey. I remember the first year and my I could hear my mom in the background, and it made me sad, but it kind of felt me it kind of made me feel good because I was just like, that's right, nobody's wrapping that turkey but me. In the beginning it definitely was hard, and you also see a lot of other people in there, go through different emotions on when it comes around the holidays. But I feel like once you grow a bond with a group of people in there that you're very close with. You're seeing them day to day, you know what I mean? Hang out with them for so long. And, I think it's like a different bond, like around those times, we always make the best of it. Whether we all come together, we pitch in, even for those that are, less fortunate in there and don't have, people looking out for them. We always go around, even on times like that. Believe it or not, you go around and you see who doesn't have something and you offer them a bowl or a taco or burrito or whatever it is that we're making for that day. We would always say your prayer too, like if it was like a regular Thanksgiving meal. Well, a lot of my time in there, plenty of moments that were good times, even at times I think back like, damn, I remember this time. And I get to smiling, I get to laughing, and I'm just like, man, I wonder how they're doing. You just get to thinking of stuff like that, especially around the holidays, especially now that I'm out here. Just like, yeah. I was like, damn, I was like, I never thought, like the way you carry yourself is you don't carry yourself like you know, uh, uh, um, how people would expect someone with that much time, would carry themselves. But yeah, like I said, everybody makes the best out of it, out of the worst situation that we're in. So,
Absolutely, Rudy. And I actually had a follow-up question with you,
yeah.
or for you. And once again, thank you very much for sharing that and your vulnerability, which is greatly appreciated. You mentioned something called vendors. Now, what do you mean when you say vendors? Because the assumption, I'm not saying that it's my personal assumption, but just a general assumption would be that you get the prison would give you some kind of a meal during the holiday times, or how they would on a regular basis, but it would just be a little bit different. But then when you say vendors, can you elaborate that on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll start it off with like the prison around Thanksgiving. They do give us two slices of turkey. What is it, like a pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes. I believe it was also green beans, a little quart or drink of some like apple juice of some sort, or it was like cranberry juice. And what else? Cornbread. And yeah, that was like a Thanksgiving meal right there. Oh, and some what was it? Stuffing. So yeah. But like vendor side, or like when you go to canteen, the vendors are like whoever that person is contracted through, and that's where you get your canteen from, your food, where you buy it from the prison. Now, it wasn't all the best food, but yeah, that's what I meant by the vendors, because well, that's what they call them in county. They would say the vendors, come and get your food from the vendors. So I guess that's just like the terminology that they use. But they would also have, I believe, every quarter was a food sale. That was actually pretty nice. I believe one time around Thanksgiving, they actually did have a food sale for KFC. So that was actually pretty
And
nice.
thank you so much for sharing. And Noni, not only phenomenal question and conversation, can I elaborate and ask as well? Because if someone is vegetarian or celiac or has food restrictions, has allergies, all of that, when you are there, then what one of the things that you're saying is that the Thanksgiving dinner, while of course you're thankful for it and appreciative, and it is very much a traditional dinner, if you if that doesn't work for your diet, then I guess one question is, do you know if there's other options
Yeah, so there is like a process that you do go through in order to get that certain diet, or like if you have different type of nutritions or like religion. So you would put in like a medical slip. You would go in, you would talk to the nurse, whether if it was a health thing or if it was a religious thing. Then you would, so if it's like more like on the health side, you would put it in a medical slip. You would talk to the nurse, they would run their tests. And it wasn't like a quick process either. You know what I mean? You had to go through all these hoops just to get a certain type of diet. So it would be like a kosher meal. I know a few people that actually some health, problems, and some are even allergic to nuts, So yeah, I know had that issue or anything like that, but I know for a lot of people, that I know did go through that, and they had to jump through some hurdles, and like sometimes they would even get denied for it. So yeah, it's not a very easy process for them to go through that. Even on the religious side, like they would have a priest come down, and like they would quiz you to see if you were actually in, I guess, that religion. Um,
to verify? They were
exactly.
wanted to make
Yeah,
sure and they wanted to verify.
right, right. And it was crazy seeing that. Like out here, I don't feel like nobody questions you if you're say, I follow this, or this is my religion. But in there is just like it's pretty crazy how they test you on all these things, just to get a verification to see if it's actually true, or if you're trying to get over, someone, you could say.
what are some of your favorite or some of the sensory, not only memory, but just favorite foods and favorite meals?
Oh man. The rice bowls in there that they would make, and burritos. Oh my God. The burritos and the rice bowls. Man, I, since I've been home, I haven't had one, and actually a buddy of mine had came by and he had this a whole bunch of stuff like instant rice, instant refried beans, and like he took me back. He was just like, "Nah," he's like, "We're gonna make a spread," and we made some tacos. I was just like, every bite was like a memory coming back. So yeah, yeah, definitely rice bowls and burritos.
Cool. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
How, again, that just it's not even sometimes it's the smell, the aroma of food. It's also, though, just the thinking about like knowing and being like, yeah, that food, and that brings up a camaraderie or a feeling of togetherness, doesn't it?
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Even at times when I like go through the grocery store, the liquor store, and I see certain sweets like honey buns, those were big, big in there. Like everybody was always trying to trade for honey buns, or if they were selling a picture or a drawing, that was like the main thing in there was honey buns. Everybody loved honey buns. So
That is so it's really cute and very homey as well, right? Uh so that's a good thing that we just learned today, at least for me. And of course, Teresa, thank you for that. I'm actually trying to ask the next question for both you, Rudy, and Jackie, from someone who is outside the prison system, and then for someone who was inside the prison system. And this is families getting in touch with their loved ones through food. Now, Rudy, you just talked about, your mom on the phone. No one's going to put bacon on the turkey till you're back, or it's only your job, right?
yeah.
But then, did your mom or any relatives ever bring any home cooked meals for you? And the same thing goes with Jackie. Like, do you know any families who would actually communicate with their loved ones through food or bring them something from your experience, both of you?
Rudy, can they bring any kind of homemade stuff in? Because that's not a thing that I know of.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, they're not able to bring like home cooked meals or anything like that. Now, if you are married and you get conjugals visits, like whether it's throughout the week or on the weekends, now there are different catalogs, vendors in the prison system that they have. So like it would be one was Walking Horse. They had a whole catalog of different things you can order from. Another one was three other ones, and they all had different catalogs of food you can order from, and you would send that catalog or the website to that place to your significant other, and they would order it like a month or so prior before coming to that conjugal visit. They have a stove in there, kitchen table, a room. It's like a little one-bedroom house that you guys would go and cook meals for, cook meals together and all that stuff. But I do know when I went to fire camp, I started off on a level three, worked my way down all the way to a level one, and then that's when I was allowed to apply to go fight fires with Cal Fire. So I did that. And once I was there at those fire camps, they were able to bring like if you wanted Carl's Jr., if you wanted Burger King or anything, you know what I mean? They can go out and buy it. Just, the COs would go and just like, look it over to make sure, there's no contraband or anything being snuck in. But yeah, as far as like family coming over to like into a prison with food, yeah, they wouldn't they don't allow that, unfortunately.
I
I
think
wish
one
they did though.
piece.
I wish they did because I
Yeah,
know I know in Mexico when my grandpa a few years back like ended up getting incarcerated back in his younger days and his parents would, make home meals. And from my understanding back then, I think that's how they would feed you. Like if if nobody came to feed you, then it was just kind of like it was very small portions that they would feed everybody. So if you had people coming in to visit you and they were feeding you, you were one of the lucky ones.
I think what Rudy just highlighted is there's a lot of different rules and regulations for different prisons in different countries, but also in different states and even in the same state. So some of us hear from people that have been in a certain facility that, oh, they get all these options and they don't. Traditionally in the United States, the prison industry is very much political and a financial machine. So they will have contracts with certain people that only provide that kind of food. So if they were able to let their family members bring things in, not only could it be something where they could pass something that's not appropriate for the prison, but that would be taking money away from who their vendors are and who they're using. So it's a way bigger situation. I think some countries don't have the financial capabilities to understand how to profit off of prisons, or maybe they just don't want to do that and they want it to be more of a welcoming experience. So wouldn't that be an interesting concept if you could actually do your time with still having your family support? Because, Noni, when you ask the question, what is it like for families? I'm going to tell you every single family experiences differently. Rudy talked about, hey, I try to act like everything's great for the holidays so they don't have extra stress. Some people are not going to sugarcoat what's going on inside prison. Some are going to be very direct, and that's going to get a lot of more guilt and sadness for the family. So there's a lot of different dynamics. And then even when you're all living in the same house and you don't have any kind of correctional issues going off, holidays can be stressful for people no matter what. Did the
Yeah.
turkey get cooked on time? Are the potatoes going to be burnt? How are we going to do this? Who's going to come join us at the table? So then you put this other dynamic where the family has to be separated. It is kind of similar in a lot of times to those that have family members that are deployed overseas. They don't willingly not want to be there to celebrate with you. They are put in a different place for situations that are now out of their control. And so trying to figure out how to adapt to that. Do we still do everything traditionally like we did and just pretend that you're sitting there with us and we don't make any new changes? That's not really going to happen for most families. Most families are going to adapt. There is probably going to be a bit of grief that goes on. There might be some anger towards the person that's not there to wrap the bacon, because if they were expecting bacon, Rudy, you just might have made them very angry. Their bellies might be craving that bacon on turkey on Thanksgiving Day. So, trying to figure out how to adapt so both sets have new normals. Now, what Rudy also shared is some people inside do not have a family waiting for them. They may have a family that is so angry at them, or they have written them off. They have no money to send money for the canteen or for phone calls, or they just want to totally walk away from what that person did, or maybe they had a not good relationship even before incarceration. That hits differently. So I guess a lot depends on if you do have your group in prison, if you have support outside of prison. How are the guards celebrating or not celebrating having to work on a holiday? Are they having a little more compassion, or are they having a little more attitude? Trying to figure out all those different dynamics. And when you're not inside, your brain is swirling. The worst case scenario is probably happening to my loved one. Or if you're inside, what if my family forgets about me? What if they don't love me the same? What's going on? So food can kind of be almost like that glue that can stick together. Like, hey, I am missing me grandma's pecan pie, or I'm missing this, guys, tell me how good it was this year. And when I get out, I want that to be my first meal. I don't care if Thanksgiving's 3 months away. That can be a glue for a lot of people. And it can also be something that kind of separates, like, you really did the bacon without me. I mean, who knows what that response would have been. So it can be so different for everybody. So Rudy, I really appreciate that you're sharing not just your experience, but what you've seen with some of the other people that you were inside with. And Length of time that you're going to be away from your family differs as well. Jails versus prisons different. In the state of Michigan, where I am, you generally can't be inside a jail for longer than a year. If your sentence is going to be more than a year, you automatically go to prison. However, if you have issues where like your trial keeps getting bumped back or something like that, then you may be housed more than a year. But it's a really different mindset for people, both the family and the person that is looking at certain time. How am I going to adapt if I'm only here for 6 months versus 6 years versus possibly life in prison? It also depends on how old you were when you were incarcerated. How was your family dynamics before you went inside? Were you already estranged? Did you have little babies, or were your kids teenagers and they've had all these traditions for years and years and now that's pulled from them too?
So I have a question then, and Jackie, I appreciate you elaborating quite a bit on that. And the one major thing that I noticed was the concept of tradition. Now, when we talk about Rudy, you mentioning that mom saying, no, the bacon will not be wrapped without you on the turkey. So is that something that became a tradition after the fact? Do you still wrap the turkey around the bacon around turkey even to this day in person?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So well, this is actually going to be my second year doing it. I definitely wrap the turkey up again. So this year I'll definitely be doing that again. And yeah, moving forward, yeah, I think this is we did it for a few years before my incarceration, and I don't know how. Honestly, I don't even know how it picked up. I think like I seen it on TV one day, and young, and I was just like, I'm like, let's wrap the turkey, and I'm the only boy, and I'm a mama's boy, so. It stopped for a little while, but yeah, we picked up right where we left off. So
Look at you, the trendsetter of Thanksgiving in your own household. So I'm actually curious, Rudy, and anyone else if you want to ask me further questions. So you said you were incarcerated in 2015, and then you were a free man 2 years ago.
hmm.
What was the first meal
Oh
you
wow.
had after being a free man?
I'll tell you what I wanted my first meal to be. I wanted my first meal to be Burger King, believe it or not. Well, I'd take that back. It could have been either Burger King. I wanted it to be my mom's spaghetti, right? But I didn't want to let them know the day I was coming home because I wanted to surprise them. So nobody knew the day I was coming home. I wanted to surprise them when I came home. I wanted it to be Burger King, but Burger King was like miles away from where I was at. So I went for the closest thing near us, which was Black Bear Diner. So yeah, so we're coming back up here to the Bay Area, and I knew I was like, all right, tomorrow I'm getting released. So I didn't even have dinner that night. I didn't eat breakfast that morning. So I was saving my appetite. Because I'm hoping I was like, man, we're gonna stop by Burger King. But no, I definitely enjoyed at Black Bear Diner though. That was it was incredible.
So I've worked with a lot of gentlemen that have served many years in prison. And when you get out, going into the
Ooh.
community, going back into places where there are humans you haven't seen before and there's noises and sounds. I know you were enjoying that food, but what was that like being in a public space that's confined like that?
It definitely was a change. I didn't really think about it, too much like when I was incarcerated or when I was getting close to my release. I was like, man, I'm like, I'm gonna be good. I don't think I'm gonna have any issues with that. But once I walked into the restaurant, sat down, and you have people walking behind you, people sitting so close to you, groups of people. Yeah, it was definitely challenging at first. Yeah, it was nerve-wracking for sure. I remember even when I came home when I was up here and we were watching I think it was a Canelo fight that was on that night. Even seeing them just because I just didn't know how things have changed throughout the years, you know what I mean? Things happen, people grow up, get older. But yeah, I showed up and even seeing them for the first time, I was very nervous. I was like, it kind of felt like meeting them for the first time. Because I definitely wanted to have a different change in my life when I came home. So I wasn't trying to be too involved or even get involved in that I used to be involved with. So yeah, I was very nervous. I would even say even scared. Wasn't too sure what type of what space they were in, you know what I mean, or where they were at, or what they were thinking, or it died out like that feeling of nervousness of going out and being in public around groups of people. It it took a little over like half a year for me to actually settle in, and feel normal again. Like it's okay, for people to sit behind you, walk by you, and not having to look over your shoulder every time you feel or see a shadow.
I appreciate so much you sharing that because it's something that a lot of families don't understand. So when they're like, yes, he's home, let's throw a party, everything's great. He's going to be exactly the same as he was the minute he walked away and had to go to prison. And sometimes even the first family meal around the dinner table, or the kids, maybe they were 4 when you went inside and now they're 9 or
Yeah.
14 and they're on their cell phone. It's a whole different vibe. And so there's so much family change that goes on. So when meals used to maybe be a good thing, or maybe this person always cooked, now maybe there's kids cooking, and there's so much dynamics that change. And so one of the things that I really want to encourage families or friends when your loved one is coming back home is to be mindful, be there, be supportive, but don't be like, oh, right in their face,
Yeah.
and let
Yeah.
them have some breathing room. Let them ask what meals they want and let them know, hey, some things have changed. We have different silverware could be a trigger, or different kinds of type of milk that's there that they were expecting this brand of milk and it's not the same anymore. So families have to realize that things are a little different. Now, they don't have to completely adapt, but they just need to be aware. So that way that transition can be a little smoother. And so many families expect it's going to be exactly the same. Rudy, I love that you were able to say the word scared.
Yeah.
Especially men, they don't like to use that word fear, or I'm nervous, or I have something I'm scared about. If you could say that to family members before you get out, guys, I'm a little scared to ride in a taxi home. I'm a little scared to feel what are my feels going to be when I walk through that door. That would reduce so much of the stress, and then you can celebrate in a better way. So I love that you were willing to talk about that and share that, because a lot of us are like, let's celebrate. It's Thanksgiving. You're home. It's your first
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. And those memories might come back in a different way that might not be so great. Especially, you shared that you had a lot of support in prison and outside of prison while you were inside. That's not the case for everyone. And some people
Right.
have a lot of additional trauma when they're inside. And so if they are trying to rebuild a relationship with the family, something like a holiday meal, if they actually got jumped that day, or if they had food restrained for them because of behavior, they got sent to the hole, that can be another re-triggering event too. So for families, it's okay to have some new normal. It's okay to give some grace. And for those that are coming home, it's okay to say, I am so excited to eat this bacon wrapped turkey that I just wrapped, but right now I need 10 minutes by myself. Can I just go into the other room and just decompress before I come out for the meal? And that communication piece is key for every day, every meal, but then especially in that holiday, or if there's any re-triggering event. So thank you for letting us ask such great questions and you being so willing to talk about it. Thank you, Rudy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually want to bring up when I first got released, came seeing everybody, and my sister, my older sister, she was like, "Oh my God, we're gonna throw a party." Like she started like, like planning it out right then and there with my parents and everybody. I was like, yeah, yeah. But eventually when everybody like walked away and I got her by herself, I was just like, hey, I'm like, look, I appreciate you wanting to throw a party and I know everybody's excited. I think I'm gonna need a little bit more time before we do something big like that,
Good
but
for
I do
you.
appreciate it. Like I eventually would love, to have that party, but I told her, just right now, I just want to enjoy it with you guys,
Yeah.
just catch up and get to know you guys, and how you guys been and, what's new and just stuff like that.
In the earlier recording, we talked about what kind of food is served within the prison system, especially during the holidays and things like that. And Rudy, you mentioned 2 slices of turkey, cornbread, stuffing, pick a pumpkin pie, probably a very tiny miniature version of a pumpkin pie, possibly.
Oh yeah.
So, so my actual, and then, it's all sounded great, including the cranberry slash apple juice that you talked about earlier. So, now that we talked about you getting out and then wanting to have your mom's spaghetti or Burger King or Black Bear Diner, is there a specific food now that you will absolutely not touch?
Oh yes, noodles. Cup of noodles. I have yet to have one, and I refuse to have the instant Maruchan noodles in the bag or in the cup. Yeah, I would never. I shouldn't say never, but I definitely will not be eating that anytime soon. I can't. I
Can you elaborate on that though, Rudy? Like why will you not eat instant ramen noodles?
Yeah, I had too many of them. Growing up, that's what, we grew up on as well. But just in there, just that was like the cheapest, easiest meal to make. And like say you guys go on lockdown, or you guys know you're gonna be going on lockdown. That's like one of the main things you stock up on. So because it's so cheap, you can buy so much of it. That's pretty much like, what you have to eat on, or if you don't have that much money on your canteen, or so much there's a big abundance of that in there that it's so easy, cheap. Even like around when COVID came around, everybody was trying to get their hands on the soup because nobody knew what was going to happen. We're watching this from in there on TVs, and it was literally like I was scared. I had no idea what was going to happen. It literally it seemed to me like it was a movie. Every time I turned on the TV, like, oh, I seen that movie already. Yeah, that was like one of the scariest moments of my incarceration, seeing COVID and all that stuff, the food flying off the shelves. Anyways, back to the noodles though. Yeah, I just had way too many in there, and I actually 2 to 3 years into my incarceration, I made a change of my diet. Before getting incarcerated, I was almost about like 300 pounds. I think like the smallest I got, the skinny, like I dropped tremendous amount of weight in there. I was about like 193. So yeah, and I still try to keep up with it. And it's just consuming those type of noodles is not really too good for you. I seen like some documentaries on how it's made and the warehouse that it's made at,
Yeah.
just a bunch of rodents and rats and yeah, it's just not really too healthy for you either.
I'm sorry, Teresa. I was trying not to laugh when you were bringing up earlier about nutritional needs and if they have gluten and this, and I'm like, oh, honey, that's like the lowest priority for prison systems. They're like, oh
I
yeah, we'll put you on the waiting list. We'll talk to you about your diet needs in 9 months, and maybe you'll be out and things like that. But one of the things I want to make sure to touch on is, okay, so I've said this multiple times before, is some of the most brilliant minds are locked behind prison walls. Talk about food creativity, because we just had one of our groups in town. They did a prison cooking session and they all brought some of the cool foods that they were able to connect with, all those things you can get from the vendors in the canteen, things that most of us would never think about pairing together. Would you share some of the creative things that actually tasted kind of cool or different than you would have done at home?
yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. So they would make cakes in there. They were a bit too sweet for me, but they were definitely good. Soups, like different types of soups, pozole, and people make menudo, Mexican rice, like that red Mexican rice. So yeah, because they don't allow us to get any type because they say that you can make wine or alcohol with that ketchup because of the sugar or whatever. But once you collect a good amount of packets of ketchup, I can definitely make you some Mexican rice with that.
Nice.
Yeah,
And
for
I,
sure.
I really want to touch on, how much food, impacts our physical and mental health. And so when we're talking about, and I wasn't trying to make light of that whole if you have food sensitivities, but if your body is not supposed to process certain foods and you have to eat it or you're going to starve, you have to eat it. If
Yeah.
you are trying to become healthier physically, because sometimes the stronger muscles you have, the less issues you have when you're in prison. If you're trying to make those decisions and you're just getting all of this stuff that just has all this junk in it, it starts slowing your body down, and then our brains start getting a little bit unhappy. And if we were used to certain type of food before we went in, and then now we have this, our brains are like, what in the hell is going on? We need those kind of nutrients, or we need this to feel better. Or we get tired and we get lethargic and we don't want to invest in ourselves. And one of the best things you can do if you're ever incarcerated is to unlock your mind, have your mind learning new things and getting as much information as you can get so your brain doesn't get stagnant while you're sitting there. And if your food is causing you to be tired and changing the way you respond, and then now maybe you need some kind of medication. I mean, that goes into play. And so many people don't consider that. And then that adds to all those other issues. And even though it was probably amazing to have all that different food on that Thanksgiving day, because I'm almost picturing the little compartments that they're putting it in on your tray, you know, for some people that don't eat much when they're in prison, or they only eat the one thing because they don't trust some of the other foods, or they're trying to restrict themselves, that might have been a real mess in their system, for having all that good stuff for a change. And, it's something that we, even when we're on the outside, we need to be mindful of what we put inside our body, how it can impact us. And again, I know this is mostly a North American type of a discussion, but we can learn from other countries. We can learn from what we want to eat personally, and we can learn in terms of our correctional systems, what works, how food can be a way to actually have less issues inside a prison. Because I know sometimes the walk from the 1 yard or from the block to the actual cafeteria can be a very deadly place for a lot of people in certain prisons.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting there and you're all nervous while you're trying to eat, or you're worried somebody's going to jump you for your slice of pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving, that changes your whole dynamic too. And when food can be something that is a positive experience for everybody, it can really change that fear mentality that so much goes on inside the prison that increases that violence. So food makes a huge impact on everything, our attitudes, our sleep, our energy levels. And if we could get more prison systems and jails to really grasp onto that, they would have reduced
Yeah.
infirmary costs. They wouldn't have to have probably so many prescriptions brought into the prisons. Because correct me if I'm wrong, Rudy, but there's not a whole lot of people that are incarcerated that trust the medical systems that are in the prisons. They don't know what kind of prescription they're really getting if they do have to go to medical, and that can change their whole dynamics as well.
No, absolutely. They they prescribe you ibuprofen for everything. Like it doesn't matter what you have, like if, from a headache to a broken bone to you might have just got unfortunately jumped or stabbed or whatever, ibuprofen, you know what I mean? Like it's just that's their go-to in there. They don't do anything for you. I can honestly say that. I mean from my experience. I definitely sat there and, talked to other individuals too, and most of people that are incarcerated feel the same way. It's unfortunate that it's like that, but it's hard to trust them because I don't feel like they're really in tuned or even worried about our health. And just goes off the meals too. The meals that they give us, like the milks that we receive every morning, it's expired that same day. Or you might even find some that have already been expired for 2 days. It's just the fruit that they give us, they limit us on fruit and what type of fruit they give us. We might get like a fruit in our lunch bag once a week, and that fruit may already be coming rotten. Like all the stuff that they have for us on canteen or on the vendor catalogs, nothing in there is that I can say healthy. It's like all
Preservatives, all that fun stuff
preservatives,
that our
exactly. There
bodies
you
don't
go.
love.
Which
Ultra
which which makes sense, because they want it to last, but it's just at the same time, it's like we're really not in the best health, that one actually thinks they are in there. So yeah, it is definitely hard. It's definitely hard on just being in there and trying to live a healthy lifestyle or trying to get the right help.
Thank you all for making such awesome points. But I do have two questions for you, Rudy, if that's okay. One is on a deeper level, and then the other one's a little bit on the fun level, you could say. The deeper level question, and feel free however you want to start. The deeper level question is, was there ever a night or daytime when you personally went hungry?
Yeah. So I had gotten myself in kind of a little pickle um when I first got sent to prison. Um and there's certain things that, it's very political in many in certain prisons. And there was a situation where something had to be done, right? As much as an individual doesn't want to do of what is either being asked or what is needed to be done, you know, you kind of have to do it in a sense, everybody does have a choice, but how do I say it? Like it's when you're put in certain situations, it's hard. It's hard to make your own choice. So got into myself into some little trouble. Me and two other individuals had to do something, which landed us in the hole. Never been in the hole. I was in the hole by myself in a cell by myself. Um, and and yeah, that's where I feel like I definitely, you don't have access to canteen. You don't have access to a phone, you would if you weren't in the hole. No TV, nothing like that. So yeah, they take your property. So all the food that you do have originally in your cell or books or any type of letters, you don't I didn't have any access to any of that. So I definitely found myself in a situation where I was definitely going hungry. Um, so yeah.
It sounds like it's a night where food wasn't the only thing. It was when, and food is representative, but your your very soul, or like the time, can be starved as well. So it sounds like it has even a deeper meaning in so much. And that's important for us to know with regards to not only incarceration, coming out of incarceration and coming back into a community of, like you talk about, Jackie, somehow sometimes there's things that, and I don't like to call it the word triggers, there's sometimes experiences or sometimes things whereby there are things that we need to be mindful of and graceful of, because thank you. Again, it's not just the food that it sounds more like it was everything. It's a sensory deprivation, and food is almost the last thing that is the most important thing, whereas that's what we need to sustain ourselves. Would that encapsulate what that was for you in a way?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely, definitely was for sure.
Where did you get your light from that time when you didn't have food? And then I'll bring it back to Noni's lighter question, because I know Noni always has a reason. You always have a reason for the deep question. And it comes not only from personal, it comes from you want to learn more about you, Rudy, or the person. And it's also, so was there a light or a bright, and what was that? What is that?
From the time that I was in that situation where I found myself, going hungry and not having access to as much food as I wanted to, it was definitely hard. I guess to find that light or that hope, no matter what situation I was in, I knew there was always going to be a better outcome at the end of it. I always had my family supporting me. So that was just always one thing in the back of my mind. My family, my family. I have to make it out of here for my family. And it's unfortunate a lot of people don't make it out of there, whether it's God forbid and unfortunately lose their life in there, or some people that do have dates, like I said, are put in certain situations where they have to do certain things, and those certain things might end them, getting life. They were about to get out next year, or whatever the case may be. So, that's one thing that always that I think was always my light, even in moments where I'd never felt I could find one, was always my family. Like I have to make it out to them. I need to. So yeah, that was it.
And that was so great, Rudy. I really admire your light, your explanation of your light and your motivation and the things that you're looking forward to, right? From my experience, regardless of the person or whatever situation they're in, food is actually something that is, um, I hate to say this, but it's true in so many levels. It's a form of control and also a form of punishment. And I wasn't sure exactly what direction your story was going to go because I didn't know. But definitely you proved me right when sharing that was that food is definitely used as a form of not just control, but I will punish you severely by taking food away from you because that is a basic human need. And once you take that basic human need away, there's no worse definition of punishment than just that, right? So you explained that in a very kind, calm, gentle manner. And I don't think anyone else would do the same. So I very much admire and appreciate your delivery on that. On the lighter side, though, on the much lighter side, I wanted to know, and as I'm sure everybody here wants to know as well, was you mentioned you made Mexican rice, you made burritos, you made all those bowls. So now that you've been out for almost 2 years, right? Give or take. Now that you're out, is there any creative meal that you had in the prison system that you make right now?
Mm, honestly, I mean, besides burritos, but I think that's like still kind of, I wouldn't call that so creative. But yeah, that's probably about the only thing. Like everything that we've definitely created in there is it's it's not something that's like been on my mind. Because don't get me wrong, like now like before I wasn't really too like I didn't expand my horizon, I guess you can say, for other foods. But now since I've been home, I've never had sushi before until I came home, and I love it. Now I love it. I don't know why it took so long to eat it or try it. Indian food, Mediterranean food, Greek food, Salvadorian food, Colombian food. I'm not refusing anything. If I haven't tried it, I'm gonna try it. As well as going out. I was very enclosed in my area. I thought that that was everything. So I'm out trying to travel as much, see places, go places, do things I've never done before. Trying to expand my horizon for sure in every aspect, and trying to get as much experience of the world as I can and different foods and everything.
This is so great that you say that because I remember the one of the few times that I met you in person, we talked about possibly getting you a euro because you'd never had one before.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but that was the whole point, then I had made a promise to Rudy like a few months ago that I will have, Mediterranean food or Greek food delivered so he can try the euros that we have or, things like that, the tabbouleh salad and different things that you may have not experienced before. So that is something that is work in progress. So
No worries,
uh,
no worries. Take your time. Take your time. Not going nowhere.
I want to thank both you, Jackie, for joining us and talking to us about your experience as an executive director in the reentry field, and also giving some or shedding some light for us really on how families really work around their loved ones being incarcerated, and other information that we wouldn't even think about. And of course, to our special guest, Rudy Navarez from San Jose, California, for taking the time out of his very busy Saturday morning. He is one of those individuals who I was lucky enough to meet, and he was very open with me about certain things, and I'm very much appreciative of that. Of course, I cannot reveal those details that he mentioned to me, but in a nutshell, please know that he is a very loving, kind-hearted, teddy bears type of a soul, and I am very privileged to know him and having the opportunity to speak with him and learn more about him, not just on a personal level, but also on a professional level and on an experience level. And I cannot be more excited to have his story out there to let people know that, people who are incarcerated are human beings just like you and I, and they are no different than you and I. And just because they were going through some things doesn't mean that they're any less of a human being than you and I. So, nothing but respect towards Mr. Navarez for joining us. And if there's anything that our audience wants to learn about Rudy, please do reach out to us. We're actually going to focus on an entire series on his experience, including food and also excluding food. If not sometime next year, then earlier in 2026. We just want to make sure that we show him respect, his experience some respect, and all the people in his similar situation some respect as well. And we want to be very sensitive to his needs and people in similar situations and their needs. Until next time, take care, everyone. Bye bye.